One, two.
Hello. We are live. Thank you to everybody that's tapped in. You are listening to the He Nuh Show.
For sure.
WINN Media 98.9. And today is Sunday, April 30th. Yo, Labor Day tomorrow. Big vibes. Town is going to be crazy.
Yeah.
So, not saying that I'm anticipating it, but I think it's going to be active. Because it's the first Labor Day after elections, right?
Yo, you know what? It's weird that you tell me it's Labor Day and I wasn't even paying attention to that.
Nobody was paying attention to that. Everybody that's tapped in deep was in all red.
Yeah, but so. That's by accident. I didn't even realize tomorrow's Labor Day.
Yeah, tomorrow's Labor Day. So tomorrow is a public holiday in St. Kitts.
Not for me, man.
Well, yeah, you work offshore, so you know where I go. But yeah, we live on Instagram, on YouTube, on Facebook, and obviously, if you're listening on WINN Media 98.9, we are here. So today, relaxed. You know what I mean? Chill vibe.
Yeah, how was your week, bro?
The week was interesting, to say the least. I've been having a lot of interesting weeks for the past, I would say, about 6 months, because I'm working on a lot of things, trying to get a lot of things off the ground to essentially set a foundation for the future.
What about personally, mentally?
Mentally.
Because we got checking on the men's mental health, yeah?
But the interesting thing is, right, the external circumstances impact the mental space a lot. So I think I've been under a fair amount of mental pressure. I wanted to say stressed initially, but I don't feel like I'm stressed, but a fair amount of mental pressure. There's a lot going on in life generally too.
Yeah. You know, I had this question that I was watching a video, a bumped into a short video, maybe about 2 minutes. And I said, you know, when I asked you this live on air without even like giving you any sound and what it is.
Okay.
But I think it's a concept that we thought about like here and there, but I want us deep dive on it a little bit today, you know. So he was talking about the concept of your mind being a garden.
Your mind being a garden.
Yes.
Okay.
And I just wanted to just get your views on what it is, because he was talking about it like putting positive thoughts in your mind and things like that nature. So I want to get how you feel about the concept of your mind being a garden.
I agree. I've seen a lot of research that makes a correlation between the mental space and physical reality. So to persons that don't know, there are a lot of concepts, there are a lot of ideologies surrounding the fact that if you change your mindset, let's say relative to a health-related condition, it's believed, because I guess they can't really prove it, but there is a dominant belief that if someone, for instance, let's say has cancer, early stage cancer, so not stage 3, but early stage cancer where it's developing, if that person adopts a positive mind state, right, along with doing other things, obviously, it's been proven that they could reduce the cancer.
Yeah.
They reduce the growth of the cancer significantly, and people, I think, the mental space shapes everything. So if you're even thinking about personal development, you have to first analyze what you want your reality to be before you can move in that direction. Same thing like 12 steps in the US with these alcoholics. It first starts, I think the first rule of the 12-step program is acceptance. You have to accept that you are an alcoholic. That's a mental game, right? So, yeah, man, I feel like relative to that concept of the mind being a garden, it's just analogous to whatever you plant, you will reap, essentially. And I think there's a line in the Bible that says that. I'm not super spiritual, but I know, you reap what you sow, essentially. It's a dominant thought process. So, yeah, man, I believe in that for sure.
Yeah, you see, I was listening to it, right? And I won't say I got triggered, but it just sent me down a rabbit hole mentally, right? Because, the saying is that you should just put positivity within your mind, right? To change your reality. But then I started thinking about a garden, right? And I just started thinking, thinking. And I said, in the garden, what's in the garden? You have your soil, you have your worms, you have all these things that you can't control, right? Almost the environment that you can't control. You have sun, you have rain, you have the environment you can't control. And it made me think like, okay, so your thoughts are like the seeds, right? And the environment, which is like the soil, the worms, all the stuff within the soil, the rain, sunlight, and all these things is out of your control, in essence. However, you could change location and go to a different space to if that soil doesn't help to produce anything, right? If the soil is not healthy or conducive, right? So you could change locations, but regardless of what location you change, right, you still can't eat soil. So it's almost like you might be around people, friends and family members and stuff like that, and sometimes they might be telling you something for your own good, but for you, it could register as a negative, like the soil. It's something that you can't really eat, you can't digest that, right? But it's still it's still like producing life, depending on your perspective on it. So when he was talking about positivity within your mind, I was just like, man, you can really grow your thoughts still without negative things, like things that you can't digest. Even if you can, you might not be able to digest it now, maybe over time. And by the time you reach to that point when you digest and you understand where it's coming from, it could change, it could cause that thought to kind of grow differently, you know what I mean? So yeah, I'm thinking, you can't really avoid the negative, and sometimes we try to root out all the negative stuff, but some of it is not really negative because it ain't really against us. It's almost like it's false, but it's just based on the perspective about it. Because I can remember times I working and stuff like that, and I was always of the mind that whenever, let's say, an employer told me I'm not doing a good job, it always registered to me, oh, it's time to get better. But somebody else might register in a different way and feel like, I don't like this job. That's so negative. But I used to always look at this as like, this is a challenge. He challenging me, so let me go and step up, rise to the occasion. But so what you think about that now, like thinking about it, like you got all these things outside your control, like family members might come and say things to you, your friends and all these things out of your control. And it's almost like recognizing in your life, like, who is the soil? Who is the sunlight? Who is the worms? Like all these different pieces, and you build that ecosystem, right? And your thoughts is a seed, right? Your thoughts is a seed that you're planting within those. Because you go to these people and you share your ideas, you share your thoughts, right? But it's up to you to kind of nurture that and go through your mind occasionally and weed out the things that you don't really like.
Okay, so for me, that makes me think about this quote where artists saying essentially, where they said you should adopt an attitude of gratitude, right? And in my mind, when I think about that, an attitude of gratitude essentially means even when things are going bad, you look for things to be grateful for. So you try to find something in it that is grateful, that you could be grateful for, rather. And, I believe there is a lesson embedded in every struggle we go through as people. I direct believe that there is a lesson embedded in every struggle. And, sometimes it all comes down to controlling your emotions and paying attention to how you respond to certain things. But then there's a lot of nuances with that as well, because some people have family traumas, things that they've gone through with their relatives, mother, father, whoever, and it shapes the way they look at the world.
Yeah.
It shapes the way that they view things. So there are persons now who, if you're thinking about it from the analogy of their glass half full or glass half empty, there are some people who just exist in that half empty realm. How do we move them out of that space into another space? It's almost impossible for you to do it, because it comes down now to them recognizing, one, that they have this issue, and two, wanting to make a meaningful change. But if you are a progressive individual, like you want to move forward, that's your objective, right? Your objective is you want a happy life. Then you will always do the things that bring you the most joy. And the things that don't bring you joy, you find ways to either avoid them or work through them. But you don't dwell on them. What I think is a lot of people dwell on the negatives. So something bad happens and they hold on it forever and ever. Whereas something good things might be happening in their lives. It's difficult for them to really hone in on that good thing, right? It's just like human nature, we have a negativity bias. So I could be your boy and we good. You ask me to do something and I do it for you 10 times, right? 10 times. And it's cool, ain't an issue. You might never say thanks after I finish doing it because we're boys. You don't feel the need to really like get a granular with it. So, you call me, yo, bro, I need some help fixing a tire. And I come. Yo, bro, I need you to pick up my son from daycare for me because I get tied up in a meeting. And I go and handle that, right? All of these things. So I'm dependable, I'm reliable in that way. And then you call me and you say, bro, I need you to go and grab this thing for me from the store. And I said, man, I can't really do that right now. Some people would be offended by that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, by asking him to do this and he can't do me that one favor. And, it makes you think, well, what happened? You forget all the other favors that were done? Mm-hmm. So, some people just can't see it. They just can't see that, hey, this person has been consistent. The one time when they don't get what they want, they're overwhelmed by the way that makes them feel. And they act, they behave in such a way that is the dominant expression. Mm. You know what I mean? It shapes the way they view the world.
Thoughts,
yeah.
Right? And the thoughts, like you say, you reap what you sow. So if you think in that kind of realm, everything gonna turn out to be that way. Because if you plant apples, you're not gonna get oranges, right? So, but sometimes I feel like people would leave situations as well as, let's say, if we come back to the concept of the garden, right? And not paying attention to, man, okay, I can't digest this soil. Like, they sound very negative to me, whatever, right? But when you look at the track record, let's say you in any relationship, like, you're with your sons and stuff like that, and you realize, even though there's always like a level of negativity, you feel like there's a level of negativity because feeling is important, right? Has those moments throughout the course of times, has that soil that you can digest produced life? Like, what has been like? Has it produced life? Like, have you been able to reap rewards from this soil? Like, gather fruits and stuff like that in abundance.
When you say soil, because that's a very abstract way of describing it. When you say soil, you're speaking about the relationship and the nuances in the relationship. So sometimes bad things happen in the relationship.
Not just the relationship, but the people around you that make up your soil.
Right.
Because, and then somebody might come around you and they might be extremely like, what the word is, always full of joy, always happy, always got the most positives. I'm like the sunlight, you know what I mean? Like, that's like your sunlight. Then somebody might come on you and they might always be depressed.
Yeah, but your engagement with those different realities would be your engagement with them, which is the relationship.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
I get you.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, sorry. I think it's about viewing those things. Now, some people, again, to the point, I don't know, they're wired a particular way and they just can't see that the way they behave, the things they do, they shape their own realities.
From the thoughts, right?
Yeah, from your thoughts, the way you choose to look at something. Now, how I see it is we look at the world through lenses, right? And a lot of times, people allow their emotion to color the lens that they use to look at the world.
May I ask you a question here? Is there something there? You say they choose to see the world through a particular lens, right? Mm-hmm. You think some people actually got a choice?
Well, it's not necessarily, you always have a choice, mm-hmm. right? But they're inclined to look at the world through maybe this musty, rusty colored lens because they have these negative thought patterns in their mind, right? Like, let's say, for instance, you have a a young dude, and he grew up with a brother, and his brother had terrible interactions with females. So based on those terrible interactions, the older brother started saying, "Oh, women ain't no good. All women just cheat." You know what I mean? He starts repeating these things. The young brother hears him over a period of years. And this young guy now develops this in his head. That is how he feels. So when he gets into relationships, he's always accusatory. There's a level of insecurity in his interactions with the women, right? What has the potential of happening is, because he's behaving in that particular way, the girlfriend notices the pattern. She doesn't really like how she feels when she's around him. Now, we exist in a world with other people. So here's this other guy who's interested in her. She's in a relationship with Mr. Negative. But the other guy has a different vibe altogether. He ain't negative. She starts spending time with the other guy, and they get close. Mr. Negative finds out, "Oh, you see, same thing I say. You cheat on me," right? It's reinforcing. He's creating a self-fulfilling prophecy based on his thought process, because your thoughts inform your actions. So if you're thinking all women are cheats, right, more than likely you're going to start to say certain things to your girlfriend, and you're going to start to accuse, and you're going to start to move a certain type of way. All right, you're moving that way. Well, she's a human being, so she's assessing whether or not this is the relationship she wants to be in, and you might push her into the arms of this next man. All right? Things happen, you find out. Whoa, miracle. Everything you said was true.
But you see, no, that's the soil, right? Because I want to keep in this garden concept, right? Because, okay, no, that's the soil. That ain't producing no life. But let's say now that same scenario, boyfriend, girlfriend, and he telling her, like almost like warning her, but she wired in a different way, where she might be insecure.
Okay.
And he say, "Yo, that guy who was talking to you earlier, I mean, really, I've got a vibe from him. I'm not really too comfortable with that, right?" No, that could just be a warning, no signs of insecurity, right? But she could feel, based on how she's wired, that he being insecure, right? And start in her mind, start assessing the relationship and see it as he being negative and trying to be possessive and whatever, and then choose to relocate to a different batch of soil.
Right.
Right? And only find out when she relocates to that same guy, she's like, "Oh, the grass ain't green over here, man."
Yeah.
And what he was actually telling me was the truth, because no, over here, this is going over here barren.
Yeah. But I mean, so all I heard there, and what I think you did, is you move the negativity from the boyfriend to the girlfriend, because the girlfriend took the situation and misinterpreted it based on the negativity that exists within her mind. So she planted a bitter seed. Obviously, you're going to reap some weird crop, right? And that's the reality. But here's the thing. In relationships, there is a balance that needs to be achieved between two people, because you walk into a relationship with your own experiences, right? You feel how you feel about things. Yeah. You see the world the way you see the world. And now, this person that is in a relationship with you needs to also learn how you see the world and how to move around you.
So then we got to become like joint farmers.
Oh, yeah, man. Yep. You know, I heard somebody say recently that when you're in a relationship, it's like you lock up. The two are cellmates. Right.
I heard that same thing, but they were saying that you two are gone in a submarine and close the hatch and gone down together.
So, you know, it's interesting, because I've been actively pursuing this concept of shadow work, right? And shadow work is essentially introspection with the purpose of getting better. So you start looking at yourself, you look at the way you communicate with others, you look at your thought processes, you look at how you react to things, to see where you could be the negative person, because none of us really perfect, and you try to make those adjustments, right? So, and it's a constant process. You ain't gonna stop doing this till you're dead. Yeah. The shadow work is a constant process. So it's something that I'm doing right now. But here's the thing. The crazy thing about shadow work is it puts you in touch with your own psychology and by extension, the psychology of others. Because we're not anomalous. We don't exist in this space as, individuals.
Yeah.
We are part of a species. So there's a lot of correlations between how I would act and how you would act, right? Or the genders or whoever it is. Now, the crazy thing is, you're doing the shadow work. You begin to see your own flaws, right? You begin to understand your own psychology. You also begin, to some extent, to understand other people's psychologies and look at the motivations behind why people do the things they do. That's a hard space to be in.
Yeah.
Because when you look at somebody and you can understand why they're doing it, there's a part of you that wants to explain to them, hey, this is why you're doing that, you need to stop. But they haven't arrived at that place. And that now, you saying that to them, it just sounds like a judgment. It doesn't sound like you're attempting to help them. It sounds like a judgment, and then they go off the rails, and you have a very, very toxic or negative situation just based on you trying to explain to them what you see.
I mean, if you live enough experience, if you live enough life, sometimes you realize too that you could, like again, change locations, go to a different patch of land, right? But then you still got to put in that same amount of work to get it to prepare. You know what I mean? Go to prepare the land for cultivation, like the people around you. You still got to go through it again and rebuild those relationships and rebuild people around you to kind of plant. You a farmer in relationships. Gardener, right?
What is required, right? So, okay, you're using the farming analogy. So, when you're farming, you need tools, right? You can till up the soil, you need a hose, you need, you need a bunch of tools, a wheelbarrow and so. The wheelbarrow is the strength that you use to carry some of the burdens that exist within relationships, right? The hoe that you're going to use is the patience that's required to break through some of them hard surfaces that people got within their mind. They construct some of these weird thought processes that make people view you a certain type of way. And then the water, in my view, is grace, because they're hard, but you sprinkle in water continuously to kind of soften them up to get them to see that life has value, or you want the best for them. But listen, sometime when the bill come, sometime when the water bill come, right? It's just like way more than you could pay.
But what you just said there, though, in terms of the tools and how you broke down that talks about your circle of influence and your circle of control, like things that you have influence over. Like you got influence over this, like preparing the soil, stuff like that. But it's up out of your control, like like rainfall, sunlight, the worms and stuff like that. You kind of so
yeah, and so then the stuff that's outside of your control, to me, in my mind, for the purpose of this analogy, would kind of be like some of the past traumas that I went through. Maybe a past boyfriend used to move a certain type of way, and they don't internalize our girlfriend, and they don't internalize that and have it like, okay, I'm going to look for this in OLONZO, I'm going to look for this in ATIBA. Now, you might do something that is totally unrelated to the experience that they had, but they just see a glimmer of a similarity, right? And they react to that.
Yeah.
They become triggered, and they start attacking you based on how they feel.
And you know what? I'm learning, more and more in recent times that, using the same analogy, right? I would call a moment that you're getting attacked. And if you know what's going on, it's almost like the rain pouring down, right? And the mistake that a lot of us make is that we will stand up in the rain. But in real life, if the rain pouring down, we're gonna go look shelter in and wait till the rain passes.
Yeah, but what does shelter what does shelter look like in a relationship context?
Shelter in a relationship context is almost like stepping back and giving yourself some time to process the information that you're receiving before you give a response. Because you could give an emotional response and it might not be the thing that you want to say.
Okay, but then here's the thing, because as men, so if I'm talking from a masculine perspective, right, women don't necessarily like when you step back from them when they're heated, because they want to get out. Most, in my experience, most don't like when you step back from them. So no, the stepping back is possible, right? But it requires a different set of tools again, because what a tool would look like, in my estimation, is, okay, here's a toxic situation, right? Or the thing is spiraling, so let's not use let's not use the term toxic,
Yeah.
but it's spiraling, right? And yeah, that might just seem like it kind of weird.
No, I think it's something with the headphones. You could keep talking.
Yeah. So
That one off.
it is.
Mm-hmm.
You not hear me? All right, my bad. So what I was saying is the spiraling, right? It might be something like, hey, I don't think this conversation is going in a progressive direction right now, right? We don't seem to be hearing each other. Is it okay if we take a break and then we could discuss it a little bit later? Because I really don't feel like I'm receiving everything that you're saying. That might be the shelter, right? Because you can't just walk off. You can't just exit. But there are also times when you don't have the presence of mind to be that sane, to say to them, hey, and go through the whole.
Well, I mean, from what you described there, it doesn't really sound like rainfall. You know what that sound like? That sound like the hose on, and the hose need attention. Can need to be turned off, right? So you feel like I'll say, like your pipe bust. That's like your pipe bust, and you got to go, and manage that and fix that, right? And and it needs engagement. So stepping back from that pipe that bust, stepping back from that one. You see? Because the rainfall is something that that you could see, like, this is totally out of my control. And it come at you. It's like a storm, it can come at you. And you got to try your best in stepping back. But I think sometimes people step back in such a way that is a little bit, comes off a little bit disrespectful. Like, not disrespectful, but like you don't care.
Yeah.
So sometimes people step back in a way that is not really helpful.
They're disengaged.
They're disengaged. And so it's not even like a step back. It's like a disengage and they just leave it alone and it would never come back up again. Right? And then it's going to repeat itself.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So sometimes you got to engage. Because sometimes people want this engagement, Sometimes all I want is engagement, just to be there and just go through, because sometimes people processing the information like live and they need you to go through it with them.
But sometimes what people are really seeking is understanding. They want you to tell them that you understand where they're coming from, right? But there are lots of times when you really don't understand where they're coming from. And in that space, what's kind of required is presence of mind. Both people have to be conscious enough to register that, hey, okay, maybe this might be one of those moments where we agree to disagree.
Mm-hmm.
But life is set up in such a way that when you're emotionally engaged with a person and it starts ratcheting up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tempers gain a little bit more inflamed, like you gain tighter. Sometimes when you're tight and your partner tight, it's almost a Herculean effort to kind of step off of that, right? That requires like a kind of real stoic meditation to say, hey, okay, I feel myself getting to a kind of place and I could see you getting to a place as well. I think we need to stop.
Yeah.
Because those little moments a lot of times lead to the termination of a relationship. And sometimes it's over nothing.
Yeah. I think you talk about it. You said the shadow self and understanding your triggers and understanding yourself, right? And so it's almost like becoming like a designated driver of your emotions in essence. So when you feel yourself going, once you do that enough shadow work, you could probably feel it when it's coming on. Because sometimes when you're getting upset, anxious about something, you almost feel it like within your chest, somewhere in your body, you could feel it. Like somebody might say something to you, and you ain't said nothing yet, but inside of you, you're burning.
Yeah, you're done tight.
Yeah. And maybe, at some point, part of it is ego to it, because you could imagine when you're growing up and somebody make you feel away, but nobody gonna punk me,
Yeah.
Right? So sometimes you might feel like you're getting punked, right? And something you gotta let it go. But like you say, in the heat of the moment, it's very difficult sometimes depending on which side of the table you're on.
Yeah, so to the analogy about the planting of the seeds, right? Mm-hmm. In order to create the life that you want, because it's things that you want to see grow. Sometimes it requires us to kind of demonstrate, move in such a way that people see from our behavior how we want to be treated. based on how we treat them. Right? So let's say you're always patient with somebody. It's kind of difficult for somebody over the long term to be impatient with you consistently if you're consistently patient with them. So, we create like a lot of awkward situations for ourselves. And it's normal. It's normal, but it's hard.
Man, let me talk about now. People who passing by and just back a whole heap of seeds over in your family.
Meaning like what? Externals? So
Yeah.
relatives and so who giving input into your relationship because they feel a certain type of way.
I'm not. You don't even have to be as close as relatives. They could just be like strangers. Just everybody just casting like an opinion or thought, and planting that thought within your mind. And affecting you. It could be random. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but you see, a lot of them things they again come down to what our trigger points are. Because let's say, for instance, right, I am dating a female, right? So it's a new relationship. You meet this girl, or you meet a guy, either which way. You're dating this person. It's brand new. So let's say you maybe about a month and a half in, 2 months in, right? And all of a sudden, people start saying, "Oh, girl, that's who you deal with. Bye, that's who you pick up. Bye.
Yeah.
She used to do this. Or, he used to do that. But yeah, he ain't no good. He like a lot of woman. Bye, she easy." That's the same thing. That's these random people throwing seeds into your garden. So some of them are going to be a fruit. Some of them are going to pop up. Some of these weeds are going to actually grow.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And it's kind of weird because, ideally we would want to say, I ain't going to take on that. I live in my own life. Everybody got to live their own life. But we exist within a society. And sometimes certain things have a social currency. So you don't want to be seen as the guy or the girl that's dating the weirdest man, right? You don't want to be seen as that girl. And I always feel like your partner, to some extent, is a reflection of you because they are a reflection of your choices. They are a reflection of a choice that you've made, right? So things that they do have some bearing on you, whether or not you want to admit it. If you have a partner and your partner goes out and gets drunk every weekend, drunk to the point where people have videos of them falling down on the street, crazy things like that, right? But you are a female who, you have a really stable job and you've taken time to craft your reputation. So people see you a particular way and you're proud of the way that you show up in society. Then that's not really a good look. That's not really a partner that you would want to have.
Yeah, and I could see that being so intense in a place like
small society.
Yeah, because because I was about to disagree to a point, but in a small society, and I think I would disagree because I would have disagreed because of I spent some time overseas, and it's like nobody really know you.
It's a different ecosystem.
It's a different ecosystem. So down here, I could see that.
And it's heavy because we're so closely connected. Because if you think about it, right, in the grand scheme of things, 58,000 people isn't really a lot of people, right? I know people in real parts of the country. I know people in Tabernacle who see me and could identify me. I could tell me that they were friends with my father or my mother, right? So it's like, how far removed are we? The degrees of separation are much, 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 much closer here in these types of Caribbean communities. So it means then that, the little gossip that your neighbor pushing, it got a real impact because you ain't feel good. And again, with that kind of proximity, let's say, for instance, okay, you're dating a particular girl, right? Now, the sound might not come to you, but then people might start saying things and whispering things. And then it gets to one of your mother's sisters. And then your mother's sister meet your mother and tell your mother, "Oh, that girl, what he but pick up? Somebody tell me, right?" And all of a sudden, your mother no longer likes this girl. Without any real proof, It's just a story that's circulating.
And she don't like her based on how it kind of indirectly makes her look because of the son.
Right. And it came from a trusted source. Right? The trusted source got it from a weird source. So the foundation of the story kind of shaky. But the people that carrying it have relevance. So it's just like, if your mother comes to you and says, especially if you have like a great deal of respect to your mother, and your mother, while she is a good person, she doesn't have the presence of mind to necessarily register that, okay, but that might be a weird story, I ain't gonna tell you about that. She just comes, she brings it because, again, she feels a certain type of way, and she feels like, oh, my son deserves better than that. So white people would be saying that if ain't an element of truth in it, and okay, she feels a type of way. So she come and she say, oh, you got to watch yourself with that girl who you're around, because people saying, all right, cool. No, it then impacts you heavily, and it could impact you much more heavily if you, one, value your mother, two, don't want to be seen as the guy walking around with whatever type of girl they are describing her as, and three, if you value purity, chastity. Because let's say you are one of the guys that pay attention to body count, but now there's this story circulating about this girl who, over the past 2-3 months, you've been building a real relationship with, right? You feel like you love her. That little sound has the ability to shift how you feel about this female, or if it's a male. So, these things, when you're talking about people staying on the outside and throwing seeds into your yard, it takes a lot in these small societies for you to say, all right, here's what, no.
You mean to assess it?
To assess it, one. To, one, let the seeds, register that the seeds have fallen, and go one by one and pick out all the weeds consciously. Or build up your wall high, where you ain't really studying what nobody say.
Yeah.
All of them things take a significant amount of effort.
And especially if you kind of care about what people thinks about you.
Oh yeah, man, for sure.
Because if you have that defense mechanism where you don't really care what nobody have to say about you, you probably go to your garden and just weed out them things.
And that's real.
Yeah,
that's real. To not care what people say is a very, very real. I don't even know if it's a skill.
Well, yeah.
But it's real. It's a real behavior for you to exist in a society, for people to be saying things or spreading, libelous ideas about you, or people that you love, people that you're close to, and for you to be totally devoid of feelings relative to that, but not that hard.
Yeah, and, if you had, sometimes, I had experiences before where somebody would come and say something to me about a particular girl I was maybe seeing, and when I get to know the girl in conversations, I realize she's not like what they're saying, and then you come to find out that, just through conversation, she not knowing that somebody said something to me, started telling me about that guy.
Right.
And what he was trying to do with her that he didn't get you.
But here's a reality. Here's another reality. And all of these things exist parallel to each other.
Yeah.
Right? It might have been true. Some of the stories might be true. Like, let's say, for instance, you had a young guy who, at a particular point, he was feeling himself. Right? So he was up and down being promiscuous, for lack of a better word. So he had a bag of girls. Right? And there was this narrative that was created that, okay, but yeah, he like a lot of women, so ease yourself with him. That might have ended when he was about 28, where he decided, this ain't really the life for me, because he had a bracing reminder or some type of scare, however it is. And he decided, I'm moving forward, I can really spend time in committed relationships, because I don't like the person that I have to be in order to interact with females in that transitory way. So he's arrived at that determination. Now, this young man is, let's say, 32. And he's checking for a particular female. She likes him. She likes the vibe that he gives off. And he's showing up for. She's never had a thought that he has any other woman. But now, again, small societies, they only want to see you with somebody, the story wake up. So the story now rises to the surface again. And it's, oh, girl, he used to do this. And And they have facts. They have like actual stories of things that happened in the past. But he's evolved since then. Bro, how you live down there? And it's even worse in the feminine context, because if a woman had certain experiences, as a society, we are even a little bit more critical of women.
But yeah, if a woman, right, like let's say that they're a young girl and she had sex for the first time, and everybody finds that she had sex for the first time.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Automatically, immediately, then say, but she like a lot of man, yeah.
Yeah, she painted a particular way.
From one experience.
Let's say, for instance, she's young, she's naive, so let's say she's 15, 16, experimenting, but not aware that this youth which is going around into some voyeurism. So he taping. He taping, send it to his friend, and it starts circulating. Now, this might be her first experience. All of a sudden, everybody's of the view that that's who she be.
Yeah, that's who she is.
She wild, and so my son now is interested in her. Might have been interested in her. I've seen the video. I don't know how to reconcile that. I'm gonna be like, bro, I don't think that's the one for you. Honestly, in all honesty, I might be like, I don't think that's the one for you. And that is how judgmental we are as human beings. But then again, it comes back to decision making too. Now, in that case, she was young. We make youthful mistakes because we're naive. But as older persons, sometimes we have to pay attention to the way that we move, the things that we do. And, some of the conversations that we indulge in as well. Because we spread a lot of libelous rumors about people, and you really don't have facts. But the thing about negativity is it's super sensational. It's easy for you to go and spread a kind of talk about somebody and what venereal disease they got.
Yeah, and it's intense, and there's a lot more negativity out there in the world than positivity.
Yeah, because a woman or a man could easily take, let's say, $15,000 and go and give it to the children home, right? Or devote themselves to dedicating time to the children home. That don't get as much airplay as if the same woman stabbed her husband 15 times. Or if the same woman went home and catch her husband in, let's say, cheating on her. Those two things have very different lifespans, and they're carried much further if it's negative. So then, and all of these things exist parallel. So when you're talking about outside people throwing these weed seeds over your yard into your garden, oftentimes some of them weed seeds gonna catch. A lot of times some of them weed seeds gonna catch. And as simple as you see it, those weed seeds have the ability to destroy what you've built.
And some of these seeds, that be accidental too. Because let's talk about even like social media. Social media is just neutral. You might go to social media and scroll through somebody's page, and you get a thought gets planted by the images that you look at. So then you could start like judging your relationship based on what you see on Instagram. But all accidental is almost like a bird flying over and dropping a couple of seeds. The bird ain't no way dropping it, just flying and dropping seeds, right? And then you look at your relationship. You might watch a show or something, and you start to like ask yourself some questions. And if your mind is geared a certain way, your environment is was a certain way, you can start thinking negatively about your relationships.
And again, it comes down to presence of mind, because those things would happen if you don't have a counterbalance. Like, okay, in our case, you have a son, I have a daughter that's in that social media phase, right? Where they tapped into social media now, they're old enough to understand YouTube and digest the content in a real way, because they're teenagers. They have a counterbalance, because if you're close enough to them as a parent and you're having conversations, you could say to him, bye, don't let her.
But what I know, we talk about tools. We possibly got tools, but everybody ain't got tools.
But that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So it comes down to having that counterbalance, and that could get into a wider conversation of, do we need education on social media? You know what I mean? Is that a beneficial program that we need within our societies now to kind of shape the mind of the young people.
I think we need programs on parenting.
We need a lot of programs, but you know, I mean, so to stick to the point, life isn't one directional. It's multifaceted, and there are a lot of things that happen and exist simultaneously. So, if one thing is true, it does not necessarily mean in life that the other is false.
Yeah, because we talk about the negative and the positive, right? And you know, you might tell your sons, don't fight, don't pick a fight,
Right.
because that's like a negative. But the positive is you must defend yourself. But it's the same action still.
And it's a thin line between the two.
Thin line between the two.
It's a thin line between the two. And I think the line between the two is them understanding when they're being a bully or being the aggressor, and when they're operating defensively. And, you know, sometimes you could be defending a thought. It doesn't have to be something physical. You could be defending a thought, and your defense of that thought gets you to a physical place, especially as men.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, you know, it's a lot of little subtle nuances. And I think it comes with faith, having faith in people to make right decisions, understanding that a lot of times they're going to make the wrong decision, and extending grace when they do. Mm-hmm. Because, you know what I mean, we just flawed human beings navigating an often complex world.
And I think sometimes we are caught up in not really realizing what's in our control and what we have influence over and what we have control over. Because a lot of things we don't have control over, we have to just let go for shade.
But and a lot of these things subtly different,
Yeah,
right?
subtly.
Because if we're talking about it from the relationship context, you might be telling your partner something and you feel like you have control because you've said it to them. You expect them to act.
I'll respond
Based on what you've said,
Mm-hmm.
right? But they are a complete individual. So they're going to do things based on how they see it.
How they feel about it.
And you have no control over that in reality. But when you're talking to them and you're seeing them and they're giving you the little head nod reassurance, you feel like you got control, right? But it takes a presence of mind for you to realize, man, maybe I got some influence.
Mm-hmm.
But that isn't control.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, they have to take action.
Mm-hmm.
And that happens totally outside of you. So, you know what I mean? Life has a lot of nuances that if you really sit down and think about it, and by you and I, we make a lot of mistakes repeatedly. Like, you make mistakes in relationship, you make mistakes in the governance of yourself. We human, so we flawed, and we're gonna do a lot of things. But I think the reality is, if you're talking about that garden and planting, and the garden being your mind, then it's all about finding ways to just improve your behavior day to day.
Yeah. And, you know, every day again, like 1% better.
That's
it. And that equals to a lot by the end of the year.
Yeah, because you don't try to shoot for a drastic improvement.
Mm-hmm.
You try to shoot for a gradual, beneficial change.
Yeah.
Now, some people expect a drastic improvement, and I am guilty of having expectations of people to improve dramatically because you've said something to them once or twice, or you've arrived at that place, so you feel like, okay, because I hear, it's easy for you to get here too.
Yeah, disrespecting the art of like planting a seed and watching it grow.
Right.
It's almost like you're planting, you want to put your hand back in the earth and pull out a tree.
A big tree.
Yeah.
And
with food and everything.
yeah, and skipping over the stages
Mm-hmm.
and skipping over the seasons where you might tell somebody something and they might register it, but the application of it takes time because they register it, but they also now have to deconstruct some habits that they've created, right? Using that as a basis. So it's like, yo, Lonzo, if you home and the children them start to scream, instead of grabbing the stick and giving them two, what you need to do is take a breath, count from 10 backwards, and then you talk to them. Bro, that simple act of counting won't be automatic because muscle memory don't tell me the stick is the solution, right? I have to now deconstruct that behavior and say, bye, okay, then, but I have a move. Let me try this counting thing. And you might do the counting thing Monday and Tuesday, but Wednesday the counting the counting ain't work because you're in a different headspace. And Friday the counting ain't work. And then you gotta reset and say, okay, going into the next week, I'm gonna try to count all the time. And you might make it to Thursday the next week with the counting, but Friday the stick come back out. And then maybe the 5th week, you might make it a full week with counting.
And you see, and if we all kind of learn how to kind of stay in the present moment, because let's say you fail on like a Wednesday, like you were saying, right? That didn't work. Depending on how you look at it, you might feel as though like you're a failure and you can't do this, you can't keep it up because you're looking in the past, right? So instead in the present moment, say, you know what, that happened yesterday, but I ain't gonna define it. I'm gonna kind of get better today. Today I'm gonna really try and, because it's like muscle memory. So it takes practice. It takes a lot of practice, conscious thinking.
And, sometimes it's about using tools too. Like what I found is a lot of people don't really utilize YouTube in a very progressive, positive way. So let's say there's something that you want to learn or there's a habit that you want to develop. Type it in. Let's say it's self-confidence. Type in self-confidence in YouTube. They got people who just sit down and put together clips of motivational speakers and all of these things that constantly reinforce that. You want to tell me you're listening to that every morning while you're getting ready for work over a 1 month period and then going to have some impact in your headspace?
But sometimes though, because the information sometimes is not being like sifted through like proper channels. It's almost like fast food, right? Some information. And some of it, even the positive thinkers or the speakers and stuff like that, sometimes it could produce negativity, Sometimes the positive, it could be overly positive. It could be, how am I explain it? Because sometimes we look at the negative thinkers sometimes as a problem, right? But there actually might be somewhere in there for you to become more creative and grow from it, right?
You got to deconstruct that because it may following.
Okay. Let's say that you're going through a particular patch in your relationship, right? And you listen to somebody on YouTube, and they say, if this doesn't serve you anymore, you should leave it. Because your mental health and they're building on all these things.
Right.
But they're saying that like just as almost like one size fits all, but it's not really breaking down the nuances of your relationship. They ain't really studying about the person being at that stage in their life, and they hear that message and it kind of resonate with them. They could actually like break off the relationship based on that, but not looking at the full picture. Well, that's what I mean. I said like sometimes the positive like messaging and stuff like that could be.
No, I don't think so. I think it comes down to one, discernment and filtering what you're gonna take from a message and what you're gonna take, because everything ain't consumable. And then if that person hears something on YouTube and that brought them to a place where they made a final determination that, okay, hey, they're here. If this thing doesn't serve you, separate yourself from it, right? And they take a relationship that, let's say, is a 5-year relationship that was mostly healthy, but they hit a rough patch because them and the partner ain't seen eye to eye about something, right? Really and truly, the video that they viewed on YouTube where the person said, if this thing doesn't serve you, cut it off, that wasn't really the basis for the disconnection, They were already thinking about cutting it off. They already had that thought. They were already at a space where they felt like that's the best direction for them because they were thinking about grass green or somewhere else.
They could also be in a space where they don't know which way to go, right? But the sound that they got and from that video, maybe they consider leaving, but then they say, you know what, I don't think I want to leave, right? But they hear that sound, it's almost like they didn't make up their mind, and then they get that messaging, and it's almost like a reinforcement. They say, you know what, maybe, right? Maybe, because sometimes I think that people make mistakes. Like you say, we are flawed. So some people could take a message and hear it and decide to move differently, right? and not fully digesting the full content in full and looking at things in, in full context based and emotional, where they are emotionally.
What I would say is, I don't think they were neutral then. I think they might have been undecided, but they were more leaning towards the termination of the thing, of the relationship, because they felt like they were focusing again on the negative. Let's say, for instance, the boyfriend purchased something, the girlfriend didn't think that he needed to purchase it because they have other more pressing things that they need to deal with financially, right? Let's say that's the case. And that became an argument. Now, the boyfriend is a generally solid dude, but again, we're saying all the time people are flawed. So he's a generally solid dude. He treats her well, but he made this mistake that in her mind is a massive mistake. It might be a massive mistake because she used to see she father take the money and go buy rum when she was a youth, right? Now, subconsciously, it is impacting the level at which she's attributing value to whoever she's seeing. All right. So, dude make this purchase, she feels a particular type of way, it ends up in a fight. Usually, when you're fighting in relationship, it's because you feel like you're valid in your position and your partner feel like they're valid in theirs. So you're clashing. That clash, that level of analysis, right? There might have been a bunch of other things that she was paying attention to in the relationship that made her feel a little uncertain, that she didn't articulate to him. Things that she might have been discussing with her friends, and she friends them pointings in her head. So now this thing is just the catalyst for the termination. It bring her to a place now where it's like, okay, but yeah, I done. But the neutrality is that she still has the ability to look at all the beneficial parts of the relationship. So she feels like, boy, I still love him, but this is so heavy on me. And then she don't tell she friends them all kind of things, and she feel how she feel. So she just decided, okay, yeah, man, I'm going to take this leap. I done.
But you see, you said something there which was like, that maybe she go up and she said she father taking the money and buying rum.
Right.
Right? So then you realize right then, like that decision is emotionally charged by fear.
Yeah, man. You got a trigger in it.
You got a trigger in it. So what I mean to say is like, even though there was some kind of consideration, right? And she not had that experience, that consideration might not even exist.
Yeah, listen, sometimes, right, often, especially from my experience, some of the things that we are attacked for are some of the basis for argument in relationships between you and your partner. All it ain't really you.
No.
Right? And all it ain't really them. A lot of times, it's you have this trauma that you've been carrying relative to something that happened in your past, wherever it is, right? And because you're carrying that, because you feel in this type of way, you have a sensitivity to a particular form of engagement. So whether it's your woman behaving a certain type of way, whether it's weakness, you could perceive something as weakness, whether it's you perceive something as foolishness, whatever it is, right? There is some type of historical thread that is attached to your reaction to all of these things that fall within that bracket.
And sometimes I see those things as like apps running, and you don't even know they're running. They're in the background just running.
You don't know. So you're reacting and you feel justified in it. But you didn't understand. But that was a long time seed that plant, and it don't go into a tree.
yeah.
That tree they want to change, sir.
A tree deep in the forest.
Yeah, man. So your little partner with his little reasoning, she with your little reasoning, she ain't really making an impact on that, because it's like she got a pocket knife trying to cut down an oak. Where you going, right? So, some of these things, and then it comes back to the point of us doing the shadow work, identifying what are our triggers, and how do these triggers allow us to show up in our relationships. Because you could be bleeding on people again that ain't cut you. You got this cut. This cut is a pre-existing thing. Somebody handle you rough one point, and now you tell yourself, if somebody, in a relationship, even playfully touch you a particular type of way, you blow off your top. I don't tell you, don't put your hand on me. It's just like, whoa, we were playing, right? Yeah.
Crazy about that too is like, as a parent, it makes it kind of tricky for you to give advice, because you could give advice that's tainted, right?
Oh, yeah, man. Yeah, man. But, I mean, the human condition is bias, you know. We always have biases. Everybody has their bias. Like, it's like me coming and telling you my partner did something, right? So let's say, for instance, I'm seeing a female and I come to you and I'm recounting a situation. Invariably, me recounting that situation, unless I have the presence of mind to be completely honest, I'm going to follow it. I'm going to communicate it to you in a way that makes it favorable on my end. Like, I'm going to communicate it in such a way where you arrive at the determination that, but yeah, Alonzo was right in what he do.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and you realize that with with a lot of people in general, that they don't really try everything on the table.
No.
For you to kind of really discuss it, you know what I mean? Because, like you say, it's almost like building teams, right?
And sometimes they do that because they don't necessarily want to hear that they're wrong. Some people can't countenance hearing that, man or girl, why you were wrong. What you did with your partner there in that particular circumstance, I don't agree with it.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you have a solid friend like that who you're not going to tell you, girl, why? No, man, that's stupidness. You ain't going to tell them the full truth. You ain't want that.
No, you know, I think that's why them like made you share posts, you know, because at times I will come to you and, you know, tell you things and you just watch me and just laugh and say, well, ATIBA, you really did. That's what you think? You think that's what you really feel? Why you're wrong?
Yeah, because to me, that is the hallmark of true friendship. Like, if you can't stand up and give your partner an insight that you feel would lead them in a more progressive direction, mm-hmm. then you're doing them a disservice, because it doesn't serve me, or it doesn't serve you to make me always feel like I'm right, because there's no circumstance in which I always right.
And that's a two-way street, because it's just like, if you got a problem, if you don't give me all the details, then it's
right.
very hard
for you to make a proper assessment. Yeah, so it is about, if you have somebody that you trust, you be honest with them fully. Like you said to them, everything that happened, especially if you're looking for real critical feedback, you said to them everything that happened, what your behaviors were. And sometimes even when you're saying it, you know, even before they tell you anything, you know, I was wrong.
You could see it.
Yeah, I was wrong. But, you know, again, it comes down to self-evaluation, looking at yourself and doing that shadow work.
And staying steady in your gardens, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you know, because people are people. Yeah. And we are going to try, but we're going to fail. We're going to fail. And there's this concept of Murphy's Law.
Anything that goes wrong?
Yeah. Anything that could go wrong will go wrong. And I've seen Murphy's Law in a lot of life. So I guess it's just about, one, being patient with yourself and understanding that you are an evolving human being. And then, by extension, being patient with other people.
And understand that the world bigger than you. Like, you know what I mean? Like, humble yourself, you know?
You're just a cock. You're just a speck in the universe. In the grand scheme of things, we're just specks. Mm-hmm. But again, everything has
significance
in its own existence, right? Everything has significance within its own existence.
Because you can't tell an ant is small. You know?
No, man, the ant is the ant. Yes, the ant's doing what you gotta do. You know what I mean? So it's the same thing. You're doing what you have to do as a human being. And it's just about trying to be the best version of that. Yeah. But it's not always the easy process. So that's where the self-patience, like being patient with yourself, comes in. But easy so. We are at the end of the show. Thank you to everybody that's tapped in. You guys got to start commenting your thoughts and feelings on the YouTube page. We need that engagement so we can know when we're heading in a good direction. So if you've gotten any value from some of the content that we present here, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, wherever you're hitting us, drop a line. You know what I mean? Let us know what the vibe is. Hit us a thumbs up or something, because it allows us to really make an assessment and see if we're making an impact. But thank you for listening. Tomorrow is a holiday, and a lot of people going beach and going to the Labor Day march and all this stuff. So be safe, be safe, be safe, be safe, and have a good evening. Goodbye.
You found the sound. 98.9. WINN FM.
We now bring you the WINN FM